Asking for help feels like weakness. That's what I believed, that's what I lived. For years, I wore independence like armor, convinced that if I needed nothing from anyone, I would finally be strong. It began early. I can still hear the voices from childhood praising me for doing things all by yourself. The first shoelaces tied without a parent's hands. The first bike ridden without anyone steadying the seat. The first exam where no whisper of guidance was allowed. I remember the pride in those moments, the way adults smiled as if self-sufficiency was the goal of life itself. And somewhere along the way, I absorbed the message. Needing help was shameful. To stand alone was to be worthy. That message hardened in adulthood. In the workplace, asking for help was career suicide. It meant you weren't competent enough, not fast enough, not smart enough. At home, it meant you weren't dependable, not strong enough to be the one others could lean on. In friendships, it meant you risked burdening people, dragging them down with your mess. And so I told myself, be strong, be silent, be alone. But silence is a terrible strength. It corrodes from the inside out. There were nights I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my body heavy with exhaustion, but my pride heavier still. I whispered, "I'm fine," to the darkness, as if saying it often enough would make it true. I held it all inside. The grief after my partner died, the pressure of being the one everyone relied on, the loneliness of children grown and gone. I thought that if I could keep it hidden, I would be untouchable. But the truth is, I was drowning. I just drowned, quietly, so no one could see. Strength is not in never falling. Strength is in reaching out when you do. I know that now, but I learned it the costly way. Why do we mistake surrender for failure? Why do we imagine that bending means breaking when all of nature shows us otherwise? The wind bends trees and they live. The river yields to the valley and carves it deeper. Breath itself is surrender. The letting go of air so life can continue. And yet, when it comes to our own lives, we grip and grip until our hands bleed, refusing the help that might actually save us. The lie is written into us so deeply it feels like instinct. Independence equals strength, but it is no instinct, it is conditioning. Think of how early it begins. Don't cry, be brave. Don't ask for too much, stand on your own 2 feet. Don't admit weakness, show you can handle it. The phrases seem harmless, even encouraging, but they plant seeds that grow into a forest of isolation. By adulthood, the law is unspoken, but absolute. Never let them see you struggle. Never say the words, "I need help." I followed that law religiously. At work, I carried projects alone, staying long after others left, too ashamed to admit I was drowning in deadlines. With family, I bore responsibilities without complaint, believing that if I showed fatigue, I would be less respected. With friends, I nodded and listened, but rarely confessed my own pain. I wore independence like a mask, so convincing that some believed I didn't feel need at all, but the truth is that mask was suffocating me. The contradictions were everywhere. I admired others when they admitted struggle. I thought them brave, even admirable. But when it came to me, I called it failure. I encouraged my children to ask questions, to reach out, to share their burdens, yet I refused to follow the same advice. I comforted friends when they leaned on me, but I never leaned back. The lie of independence didn't just isolate me, it made me a hypocrite. I remember one afternoon in painful detail. I was moving house. Boxes towered around me like walls. Friends offered to help. Neighbors paused in the driveway, seeing me sweat under the weight of furniture. Even strangers walking past tilted their heads as if to say, "Do you need a hand?" And every time I waved them away. Pride sat heavy in my throat. "I'm fine," I insisted, even as my arms trembled. Finally, as I tried to carry a wardrobe down a narrow staircase, my strength gave out. The crash echoed through the house, wood splintering, my body aching on the floor. And still, even then, I wanted to tell anyone who asked, "It's nothing. I can handle it." What did I prove? Nothing but arrogance. What did I gain? A pulled muscle and days of pain. What did I lose? The joy of shared labor, the laughter of community, the tenderness of being carried. The lie whispers, "If you ask, you are weak, but life replies, if you never ask, you will break." Walk through a forest after a storm. The trees that stand rigid, refusing to yield, are the ones snapped and fallen. The ones that survive are those that bent. Some even lean on each other, trunks angled together, roots interwoven underground, holding one another upright. The strength of the forest is not independence, it is interdependence, and if creation itself survives by leaning, why should we be any different? Dependence is not failure. It is the fabric of being human. Refusal to need others is not strength. It is arrogance disguised as pride. I wish I had known that sooner. I wish I had had the courage to whisper, "Yes, I could use a hand," because the sting of my confession is this: all the years I thought I was admired for carrying it alone were really years I was too afraid to be human. There is a particular memory that still aches in my body when I think of it. It wasn't dramatic, not the kind of story you'd find in a novel or a film. It was moving day, just an ordinary Saturday, but for me it became a mirror of my arrogance. The house was half empty, furniture stripped down to the bare bones, cardboard boxes stacked like tired soldiers along the hallway. Dust floated in the air, caught by thin stripes of sunlight through half-closed blinds. My shirt was plastered with sweat before the clock even struck 9, my muscles tight and already protesting. And yet, when the first offer of help came, a friend texting, "Want me to swing by with the ute?" I typed back, without hesitation, "Thanks, but I've got it." Neighbors paused at the sight of me, awkwardly wrestling a sofa through a narrow doorframe, its edges scraping against the paint. One called out, "Need a hand?" I forced a smile, shook my head and muttered, "All good, thanks." My voice betrayed nothing, but inside I was cracking. With every refusal, I doubled down on the lie. Each "I'm fine" was another layer of armor strapped tighter around me until I could barely breathe. By midday, my body gave out. I remember the sharp, electric pain in my back as I lifted a box of books too heavy for one man to carry. The box slipped, the contents spilling across the floor. Old journals, folders, half-forgotten photographs. I collapsed beside them, breath shallow, sweat dripping onto the ink of my own handwriting. I sat there for long minutes, staring at the sprawl of my life scattered on the ground, humiliated by the sheer foolishness of it. And yet even then, when another neighbor appeared in the doorway, concern written across his face, I waved him off. No, I'm okay, just catching my breath." The words tasted like ash because I wasn't okay. I was in pain, ashamed, and more alone than I had been in years. That day, I carried not only furniture and boxes, but a crushing loneliness disguised as pride. I thought I was proving something by refusing help, but what I proved was that I was afraid. Afraid to be seen struggling, afraid to admit I wasn't enough on my own, afraid to surrender. Later, when the last box was dragged into the new house, I sat on the floor in an empty room, the walls echoing with silence. My back ached, my arms throbbed, and yet what hurt most was the realization that the entire ordeal could have been different. That day could have been filled with laughter, shared effort, neighbors swapping stories between trips, friends sitting cross-legged on the floor with takeaway pizza after the final load. Instead, it was marked by isolation, silence, and my own stubborn pride. That is the cost of refusing to ask. Not just physical pain, but the stripping away of community, the erasure of joy, the theft of presence. The memory of that day forced me into a truth I had long resisted. Dependence is not a flaw. It is a fact of being human. Everything in us resists that sentence. We are taught that to need others is to be fragile, to be lesser, to be somehow unfinished. But what if the opposite is true? What if dependence is not the mark of incompleteness, but the essence of connection? When I finally began to examine the pattern of my life, I saw it everywhere. Refusal to ask was not strength, it was fear wearing armor, pride masquerading as competence, and beneath it, the aching loneliness of a man who had cut himself off from the lifeline of relationship. Because here is what I discovered. Asking for help is not collapse, it is communion. It is not the end of dignity, it is the beginning of trust. When I refuse to ask, I am not protecting my strength, I am protecting my illusion of control. When I ask, I let another person enter my life, even if only for a moment. And in that moment, both of us are made stronger. Strength is not measured in how much we can hold without breaking. Strength is revealed in how willing we are to reach out when we are breaking. Nature testifies to this everywhere. A tree bends in the wind not because it is weak, but because bending is how it survives. A river yields to the stones in its path, and in yielding, it carves valleys deeper than floods ever could. Even our bodies know it. Each breath is a surrender. We let go of what we have so that life can continue. Holding endlessly would kill us. It is release, it is asking, it is receiving that keeps us alive. And yet we resist. We imagine that standing alone makes us strong. We convince ourselves that surrender means defeat. We idolize the self-made person, the solitary tower, the one who needs no one. But towers fall. Rivers endure. Forests survive because their roots intertwine underground, unseen yet inseparable. The truth is that dependence is part of being human. To need is not to fail, it is to live. Refusal to need is not courage, it is arrogance disguised as independence. When I finally admitted this, I felt a strange mixture of shame and relief. Shame that I had wasted so many years clinging to the mask. Relief that I could finally set it down. It took me far too long to see it, but surrender is not weakness, it is strength in disguise, the kind that bends but does not break, the kind that survives storms, the kind that allows life to carry itself. And so I circle back to the question, why do we mistake surrender for failure? Perhaps because surrender is the one thing our pride fears most. And yet, if we can bend, if we can ask, if we can whisper, even through trembling lips, I need you, we might discover the strength we were searching for all along. There came a time when I realized that all my talk of strength had been hollow, that my silence, my insistence on carrying everything alone was not resilience, but fear. I saw it most clearly when I finally let myself whisper those words I had avoided my whole life. I need help. The first time I said them out loud, my voice cracked, my palms were wet with sweat, my chest tight, my pride rising up to stop the words before they left my mouth. But they came out anyway. And do you know what happened? The world didn't collapse. No one turned away in disgust. No one sneered or mocked. The opposite happened. Someone leaned in, someone reached out. And in that moment, something shifted. The shame I had feared for years gave way to a strange, unexpected relief. I had not lost dignity. I had gained it. Because I had been honest at last. Surrender bends. That is the stone I keep in my pocket now. Not surrender as defeat, but surrender as survival, surrender as strength, because true strength is not found in holding until your arms break. True strength is found in asking before you shatter. Think of how much of life is already built on this. The roof over our heads is not the work of one person, but of many hands. The food we eat is grown by farmers, transported by drivers, sold by workers, prepared by cooks. The very road we drive on was laid down by teams whose names we will never know. Every single day we are alive because of the work and care of others. To deny that is not strength. It is blindness. So I ask you, what help are you still refusing? What weight are you insisting on carrying alone, even as your arms tremble? What silence have you built around your need, convincing yourself it is noble when it is only lonely? Where have you confused pride for strength? I cannot answer these for you, but I can tell you that when I began to ask, my life softened. The world, which had felt like a relentless burden pressing me down, began to feel like a place where I could be carried to. I learned that asking for help doesn't just save you, it invites another person into a deeper truth as well. It tells them they are needed, that their presence matters, that they are strong in ways you are not. Asking creates a bond where silence builds only walls. Strength is not in holding, it is in asking. And I wonder if perhaps the question is waiting for you too. What hand could you reach for even today? Surrender bends. That is the truth I carry now. What looks like weakness is what holds us whole. What feels like collapse is the doorway to resilience. The refusal to bend may look impressive for a while, but it is the unbending tree that snaps in the storm. The one that survives is the one that bows. Strength is not in the grip that never loosens, but in the courage to open your hand. It is not in the silence of, "I'm fine," but in the trembling honesty of, "I need you." It is not in holding until you break, but in asking before you do. I used to think I would be admired for carrying everything alone. Now I know the greater dignity is in admitting I cannot. Because to need is human. To surrender is strength. To ask is the first act of courage. So may you find the strength to bend. May you discover the freedom hidden inside those three simple words. I need help. May you see that asking is not collapse but communion. Not failure, but survival. Not shame, but grace. The world will keep telling you that independence is proof of worth, but you don't have to obey that lie. You can choose the humbler road, the braver one. You can choose to surrender. And in doing so, you will find that surrender does not erase you. It saves you. Strength is not in holding, strength is in asking. And if you can take that into your next breath, your next burden, your next silence, then maybe you will find what I have found, that surrender bends, and in bending, you remain whole.